this is Glover Teixeira, UFC light heavyweight champion.
Hi, I'm Robbie Lawler.
What's up, fight family? This is your favorite MMA coach, Thiago Alves, the Pitbull.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Pedro Munoz.
This is Mike Brown.
Guys, I am Alexei Olenek. And welcome.
And welcome.
And welcome.
And welcome.
And this is We Want One Picks.
And you're watching We Want Picks.
To We Want Picks.
To We Want Picks.
To We Want Picks.
To We Want Picks. Hi everybody from American Top Picks.
My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. This is our new segment called Quick Picks. I'm going to run through the entire UFC Vegas 46 Kattar versus Chikadze fight card, and I'm going to do it in 20 minutes or less. I'm going to give you every single pick, all of the insight, and every single bet in 20 minutes or less. Before I dive in, if you want $50 free, go to wewantpicks.com/bets, sign up with one of our 5 betting partners, make a deposit, let me know, and I will send you $50 as a thank you. CASHAPP, PayPal, Venmo, however you want it, literally $50 as soon as you sign up and make a deposit at wewantpicks.com/bets. This card has become somewhat of a mess. We've lost a bunch of fights, so I'm going to run through what fights exist today and we know for a fact. And first up, we have Dakota Bush versus Viacheslav Borshchev. Viacheslav Borshchev, 5-1 overall, 4-1 in his last 5, coming off a great win on Contender Series. Dakota Bush, 8-3 overall. He's 3-2 in his last 5, coming off a decision loss to Austin Hubbard. Dakota Bush, he is coming off that loss, and it was a short notice UFC debut fight. He did look decent in that fight. Dakota Bush is a solid striker. He moves well. He has well-timed shots and powerful low kicks. He's also a good grappler who, with takedowns and pressure, can really dictate a fight. Dakota Bush is a well-rounded guy. He did have a tough draw in his UFC debut. Viacheslav Borshchev is a fantastic striker. He has a legitimate professional kickboxing career before transitioning to MMA. He's got a great jab, solid power, and fantastic kicks. I mentioned in our full breakdown, he's almost like a Rafael Fiziev, where he is a fighter, but he is also the head coach. And in Viacheslav's case, it's the head coach at Team Alpha Male. And if you've been following Team Alpha Male this last year or two, you've seen they've put out some solid guys with some underrated striking. And they're traditionally known as a gym full of smaller weight classes with very good wrestling. So I have to imagine that wrestling in that gym has surrounded Borshchev, Viacheslav, and he's getting good wrestling looks. He's improving his wrestling, and he's working with those people every single day. I do think the odds are way off on this fight, where Viacheslav's a massive, massive favorite. I do understand why he's a favorite, but to be almost a 2-1 favorite is a bit extreme because we haven't seen his wrestling tested. We haven't seen someone come out there, try to take him down over and over, and then try to work him to the ground and control from there. We don't know how his cardio is going to hold up if Dakota Bush is in there pushing the pace, just constantly shooting. And we don't know what he'll do if he actually gets taken down a few times. I could see a fight where Dakota Bush weathers an early storm, then starts to take over after the first round with some wrestling, some heavy top pressure, and a threat just in the grappling department. My pick is Viacheslav Borshchev here because his striking is just literally next level. I mean, he's world-level striker, and I have to imagine, I mentioned it before, that he's working with the Team Alpha Male guys. He's getting those good wrestling looks, and he's, prepared for a wrestling game plan from Dakota Bush. The odds are a bit extreme, but I do like Viacheslav Borshchev to beat Dakota Bush. Next up at UFC Vegas 46, we have Ramiz Brahimaj versus Court McGee. Ramiz Brahimaj is 9-3 overall. He's 3-2 in his last 5, alternating wins and losses, and he's coming off a very nice submission win. Court McGee is an absolute legend. He's 21-10 in his career. He's 2-3 in his last 5, but he is coming off of a nice win in the underdog spot over Claudio Silva. Ramiz Brahimaj, you might remember him from his ear almost falling off against Max Griffin. And what was very frustrating about that is that was a fight where he should have been grappling, but instead he was striking. He did have some success striking but it started to go south, and his ear literally almost fell off his head, where if he just grappled, shot takedowns, did what he was supposed to do, he would have dominated that fight because he is a world champion black belt jiu-jitsu guy. He has power in his hands, but he also sets up his takedowns well, so there's no reason for him to be entertaining the striking in a fight against a pretty good striker. And again, the issue is he doesn't always grapple when he should, especially if you dig into his record. All 9 of his wins are by submission. He absolutely is a crusher when he gets on top. His striking is not very good. His grappling is amazing, and that will always be his path to victory. Court McGee is an absolute legend. He has been around forever. He's an Ultimate Fighter winner. And I mentioned this last time. He's sort of a meat and potatoes guy. If you look at his record, yes, he's lost 10 times. But if you dig into those losses, only 1 of them was by stoppage. So 9 of those losses were by decision, and they were all pretty close fights. He is in every single fight, and that's because he's incredibly well-rounded. He's got good hands. He's got good grappling. He's got good takedown offense. He's got good takedown defense, and he is one of the toughest human beings on planet Earth, and he is almost impossible to get out of a fight. He's the type of guy that works really hard. He just has worked very hard to get where he is today. He is not a 1% athlete. He's not one of these guys that just wakes up, is good at everything right out of the gate. He has worked for everything he has, and that's where that grittiness and that toughness comes from. It's an interesting matchup, and I'm surprised that the odds are close, honestly. I would have assumed that the odds makers would have taken a look at Court's 2 and 3 in his last 5 and just counted him out in this fight. So good for them for being a little sharper than I expected them to be. And I honestly think this is somewhat of an easy breakdown to do, because if you look at Court McGee's fight versus Sean Brady, and Sean Brady, very similar to Ramiz Brahimaj, very good grappler, hands are just okay. If you look at that fight, Sean Brady was able to get some takedowns, was able to outland Court McGee, and had some solid control. He couldn't put him away, but he won that fight, and it was a pretty clear win for Sean Brady. I expect the exact same thing for Ramiz Brahimaj. I think he will grapple in this fight. I think he'll get some takedowns, and I think he'll have solid top pressure. And his jiu-jitsu is just so insanely next level that I think Court is going to have a hard time just working back up to his feet. He's got phenomenal takedown defense, and he works up to his feet well. You can see the takedown defense on the screen here, 70%. With the amount of fights that this man has had, that's an incredible number. I do think Ramiz will be able to exploit the 30% margin of error there with the takedown defense, be able to get some control time and ride out Court McGee. He's not going to submit him, but I think he'll ride out to a solid decision win. Next up at UFC Vegas 46, we have Jamie Pickett versus Joseph Holmes. Jamie Pickett, 12-6 overall. He's 3-2 in his last 5, and he's coming over that decision win over Staropoli just a month ago. Joseph Holmes will be making his official UFC debut. He's 5-0 in his last 5, riding an 8-fight win streak. And this is a battle of the middleweight giants. Both of these men are tremendous. Look at the heights on the screen. We have 6'2 versus 6'4, 80-inch reach for both of them. And Jamie Pickett is used to being that big guy. He's used to having a massive reach advantage, and he's one of the few people that actually uses his reach advantage well. But in this fight, he's not going to have a reach advantage. He normally uses it to manage the range, keep people at bay. And if you look at the stats, he has the 1-2 strike differential, which means he has hit twice as many times as he hits his opponent. And that's because he gets gun shy. He takes his time. He's a little slow to pull the trigger, and people will touch him up while he's waiting. If Jamie does manage the range well, he can initiate some takedowns, get some control, and we've seen him do that before, ride out a win with some takedowns. And we can see that he averages 1.59 takedowns per fight, and that's a meaningful number, especially in a fight like this. Joseph Holmes is taking this on somewhat short notice, and it is his official UFC debut after a successful Contender Series win a few months ago. He's a massive 6'4". He has the same 80-inch reach that Jamie Pickett has. But unlike Jamie, he does stand pretty upright, and he doesn't use his reach as well. He doesn't use his reach to keep people away. He actually uses his length and the reach on the ground to wrap up submissions and threaten with submissions down there. And if you look at the stats, he averages 1.9 submissions per fight, which is incredible. That means he's an active guy on the bottom or on top, and he uses that length and that reach to make it happen. When he does engage on his feet, he sticks and moves until he can wrap you up, work a takedown. And on the ground, he's a solid brown belt, and he does threaten submissions. This is a really tough fight to call. I like Pickett because he has the UFC experience. I also think somebody, him fighting somebody with the exact same length and somebody just as big as he is could potentially pose a problem, or at least frustrate him because he's not used to fighting people that are equally sized. So I am leaning towards Pickett because of the experience, but I do worry that Joseph Holmes is a genuine athlete. Joseph Holmes is a pretty good grappler and can be a threat here, but it's his official UFC debut. It's short notice. Jamie Pickett has experience. I have to go with Jamie here in a very razor-thin pick. Both of these guys can be gun-shy at times, so it might literally come down to who is walking forward versus who is not. So Joseph Holmes, phenomenal fighter, great underdog spot, but he's barely an underdog. So Jamie Pickett is the pick. I'm not going to be throwing any money at this fight. It's just too close to call. Next up at UFC Vegas 46, we have Joanderson Brito versus Bill Algeo. Joanderson Brito is 12-2 overall, 5-0 in his last 5, and he hasn't lost a fight since 2015. Bill Algeo, 14-6 overall, and he's 2-3 in his last 5, alternating wins and losses. Joanderson Brito is fast and athletic, phenomenal grappler with solid top pressure and a wide array of submissions. He's coming off a dominant win on the Contender Series where he had 3 takedowns. His striking is not very technical, but he will come forward and throw absolute bombs, big, wide punches, heavy kicks, and he almost has no regard for what comes back his way. But even though he's comfortable striking, he will look to get it to the ground and work from there. Bill Algeo kind of has that karate style striking, the way his stands and where his hands are. And because of that, he's got pretty good defense, and he is not hit very often. He has very high output with 6 significant strikes per minute. He does like a dirty stand-up war if he can keep it there. He has some takedowns, they're okay, but a very low 28% takedown accuracy. He has a BJJ black belt. He's got fantastic cardio, and he sets a fast pace. He's also incredibly durable. This can be a really fun fight. Both Algeo and Brito have no problems getting into a war. Both guys are well-rounded. Each have solid striking with the technical advantage to Algeo and a solid grappling advantage to Brito. I want to go, like my heart wants to go with Algeo here, but I just can't. If you look at his last 4 UFC fights, you will see that he was taken down a ridiculous 20 times. 20 times in 4 fights. That is just insane. Even with his win against Spark Carlisle, he was taken down 4 times. 4 times in a win. That's not good news when Joanderson Brito is the guy taking you down. It's inevitable he'll be taken down. I don't see him being able to work back up as quickly as he has in the past against a Joanderson Brito with that kind of pressure. I don't normally like to do prop bets, but I did do a Joanderson Brito wins by decision prop bet at plus 185 because the reality is Bill Algeo is live in this fight, and he's very tough, although I do think Brito takes him down, rides him out, and wins from there. And then I also did a small Brito money line at minus 130 to cover anything else. So I do think Brito wins. He's the pick. I think it's pretty straightforward. Next up, we have Chase Sherman versus Jake Collier in the battle of the, honestly, almost identical style heavyweights. Chase Sherman is 15-8 overall, 3-2 in his last 5. He is on a 2-fight losing skid. He lost to my good friend Parker Porter and Andre Arlovsky. Jake Collier, 12-6 overall. He's 2-3 in his last 5, alternating wins and losses. And I mentioned it earlier, these guys have almost the exact same fighting style. They're both good technical boxers that aren't really looking for takedowns. Chase Sherman's good boxer, solid foot movement and speed. He does not have a ton of power, but he does have very good volume and doesn't stop throwing hands until the last bell. Even if he's tired and slowing down, he still continues to throw those hands and push that pace. Chase has solid takedown defense. You see it here at 82%, but he does not have any head movement at all. And look at that 6.33 significant strikes absorbed per minute. That's a problem for him. Jake Collier was a big, physically fit middleweight. Then he was an okay size heavyweight, and now he's an undersized and exhausted heavyweight. He's honestly, I hate to trash the guy, but he sort of let himself go. He still has a phenomenal chin. He sets a good pace. He doesn't necessarily gas out, but at middleweight, he looked fantastic. And now he didn't add any muscle. He just sort of added weight. He is well-rounded, and he does have a nice arsenal of tools. I mentioned it before. These guys have identical fighting styles. They're both well-rounded. They're both looking to keep it standing. They have solid fundamental boxing, but I would say Jake is the cleaner striker and has the better defense, or at least any defense at all, since Chase Sherman doesn't. At the end of the day, I think Chase is the better athlete. I think Chase is tougher, and I think Chase can push the pace and stay in that fight and just dig deep, where Jake Collier, like we saw in his fight against Felipe, could just sort of fade a little bit and start to fall behind. I like Chase to keep a pace and take a decision here, but this is another fight that's super close, and I'm not willing to lay out any money because nothing would surprise me. Either way, it'll be a striking war for 15 minutes. I do not see any stoppage here, and whoever lands more strikes is going to win this fight. Next up at UFC Vegas 46, we have Brandon Royval versus Rogério Bontorin. Brandon Royval, 12-6 overall. He's 3-2 in his last 5, riding a 2-fight skid to top 10 opponents. Rogério Bontorin, 16-3 overall. He's 3-2 in his last 5. Brandon Royval is one of the most exciting guys to watch. He's always looking for a finish, but he has enough cardio to set a relentless pace for 15 minutes. He's dangerous on his feet with diverse striking and great speed. He's also a solid grappler with tricky submissions and a willingness to chase them. He throws crazy, he brings a ton of pressure, and he keeps coming forward. Brandon Royval is a problem for a lot of people. Rogério Bontorin has heavy punches, and he throws with intent, but it's mostly there to set up his grappling. His grappling is very good. He has solid pressure on top and is very controlled, where Royval will scramble, look for wild submissions. Rogério will plot, take his time, and work from there, from one position to another. And he does all this while keeping pressure and throwing strikes on top. He can absolutely submit anyone on the ground, but he does take his time, which means sometimes he does fall behind on the scorecards because he's working, at a slower pace than some of his opponents. And Brandon Royval can absolutely exploit that. We have two fun guys going at it here. I think Brandon is definitely the more well-rounded fighter. He's certainly the better striker, and he has skills on the ground. Bontorin is the better grappler, and he has more power in his hands. The odds are a little wide here, with Brandon Royval flirting at the -160 mark. I do think Royval should be the favorite because his striking is solid, his pace is incredible, but his willingness to just be wild in a fight has cost him fights in the past. I mean, look at his last fight. Wild scramble, doing a little too much, gets caught and submitted, and that could absolutely happen here. I am picking Brandon Royval to win, but I do worry that he'll make a bad decision, do a crazy scramble, and get caught in something. But Brandon Royval is not a finisher, which is why I did a wins inside the decision, no action bet on Rogério Bontorin. All Rogério Bontorin has to do is not get finished, and I will win my bet. If he loses a decision, it's okay. I get a refund. And if he stops Brandon Royval, I get paid out at +165. I really like that bet. You're only going to get it at wewantpicks.com/bets. BetOnline is the partner. Sign up, make a deposit, let me know, and I will send you $50 as a thank you. The co-main event, we have Katlyn Chookagian versus Jennifer Maia. Katlyn Chookagian, 16-4 overall, 3-2 in her last 5, and she's coming off a really close win over Viviane Araújo. Jennifer Maia, 19-7 overall, 3-2 in her last 5, alternating wins and losses, and this is a rematch. Katlyn Chookagian won that fight 29-28. She took 2 out of the 3 rounds in their first fight. Katlyn Chookagian, she's tough and she sticks to the basics. She just throws 1-2 over and over and over. An incredible pace and just literally sticks to the basics. She's very good at the basics. She's not amazing anywhere, but she is good everywhere. She's got a solid jab, a solid right hand, no real power, but she will keep that volume, keep her feet moving, and ride herself a decision win over pretty much everybody outside of the top 5 or 6 in the division. She will strike with grapplers, grapple with strikers, and she has a solid game plan for all of her fights. Jennifer Maia, well-rounded fighter. She's got solid Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but she just has okay wrestling, so it's hard for her to get it to the mat at times. And she has underrated boxing. She's similar to Katlyn in that she's also a decision fighter, but she does have a few tricks up her sleeve, like the submission win over Joanne Calderwood, which actually earned her a title shot against Shevchenko. But in that fight, she was taken down 5 times and controlled. Her normal path to victory is to outbox her opponents who are too afraid to take her down because her jiu-jitsu is very good. I mentioned this is a rematch, so let's talk about their first fight. Katlyn won that 29-28, and she just did it with straight-up striking and volume. Touch and go, touch and go, touch and go. But in the third round, Jennifer Maia was able to take her down and get some control time. She controlled her for half of the round. Literally half the round. And Katlyn still managed to outstrike Jennifer Maia in the fight, but also in that round. So literally half the round was spent on her back, and she still threw and landed more strikes than Jennifer Maia did in that round. And that's why Katlyn Chookagian's the pick here. Her takedown defense is only 52%, but Maia's takedown accuracy is only 50%. I expect Maia to come out here. She had success with the grappling last time. I expect her to try to do it again. But Katlyn should be prepared. Her insane pace and volume should just win her another decision. And I think she sets some sort of all-time record if she wins another decision. So Katlyn Chookagian's the pick. I think this fight looks very similar to the first fight with a little more emphasis on grappling from Maia this time around. And then finally, we have the main event of the evening. We have Calvin Kattar versus Giga Chikadze. Calvin Kattar, 22-5, 3-2 in his last 5, coming off of that insane loss to Max Holloway. Giga Chikadze is 14-2 overall, 5-0 in his last 5. He's riding a 3-fight stoppage streak. Calvin's a nasty boxer, one of the best boxers in the UFC as far as technique is concerned. He does have power, but most of his knockouts and stoppages are because his timing and his speed are just so incredible. He's exactly where he's supposed to be at all times and lands right on the button when he's supposed to. He's not going to overwhelm anybody with power, but he will overwhelm you with laser pinpoint accuracy and volume. Before the Max Holloway fight, his stats looked way different than they do right now. Before the Max Holloway fight, he outstruck every single opponent. And now, unfortunately for him, he has a negative striking differential, and that's how bad that fight was. But he did the right thing. He took 8 months off, recovered. I'm assuming he's made some adjustments, and he's coming back at it against Giga Chikadze. And Giga is the future of the division. Some of you people made comments that he's 33. He's the future. He's the future. And it doesn't matter that he's 33. He is the future of this division. He's a phenomenal striker. He has a solid jab, fantastic kicks. He stopped Cub Swanson with a liver kick and then stopped an incredibly tough Edson Barbosa. He does an incredible job managing range. He can keep you at the end of his strikes, and he does that with those kicks. He'll keep you away with the kicks and then leap in and do what he needs to do. He's not a high-volume guy. He's only landing less than 4 significant strikes per minute, but he does an amazing job keeping his opponent's strike lines low as well because he manages the range. He doesn't let you settle into a rhythm. But he does have a loss on Contender Series where he was taken down 4 times and submitted, and that's the only time in the UFC where he has actually looked like a human being. This is a fun fight. Listen, Giga is the pick because his striking is so phenomenal and he's got such power in those legs and his timing is great. But Calvin Kattar is very live. He's got incredible boxing. It's very well timed. And he does have a wrestling background. We talked about it in the full detailed breakdown. He wrestled in high school. He had some success wrestling. He does have a wrestling background. And he's a smart guy. He may come out here with a wrestling game plan. Where he has had problems in the past, Calvin, is guys that stay in his face and push the pace. Max Holloway did it to him. Moicano did it to him. Zabit did the same thing. Those losses are people that stayed in his face and pushed the pace. That is not how Giga fights. Giga takes his time, works the range. I think Calvin Kattar is a very, very live underdog here. A very live underdog because if he pushes the pace and he stays in Giga's face, uses that incredible boxing, uses his volume, his pace, mixes in some wrestling, he could be a legitimate problem. Styles make fights, and they're both strikers, but it's sort of a clash of styles. So I'm very interested to see what happens. Giga's the pick, but that's a safe pick. Calvin Kattar is very live here. I may figure out how to sprinkle a bet on him. And thank you for watching our new quick picks breakdown. Go to wewantpicks.com/bets. Sign up with one of our partners. Make a deposit. Let me know. I'll send you $50 and let me know if you'd like this new format. We'll continue to put this out along with our full detailed breakdown every single week. I'll see you on Saturday for our pre-fight breakdown.